If you are trying to find the perfect study advice that will amplify your academic performance, then this video is for you. And I know that the tips that I'm about to share with you actually work because I used to be in the exact same position as you are. I would constantly try looking up YouTube videos, trying to figure out the perfect study hack that would finally make studying click for me. But after watching all of these videos, I started to realize that studying in and of itself boils down to a few very basic concepts that are extremely easy to follow. And once I actually implemented these tips, I found that I was able to get nearly 100% on every single exam without even having to study that much. And I guarantee that once you master these concepts, studying for exams and acing your tests will literally become so easy for you. The first piece of brutal study advice is acknowledging that studying is hard, so you need to make it a habit. Now, the biggest mistake that students make is that they'll take all of their studying and all of their assignments and they'll push it until the day right before the exam because they don't have the discipline to actually review it beforehand. Now, not only does this dramatically increase your stress levels, but cramming all of that information into your head is just not good for your brain. Now, the way that you get around this is by blocking out a portion of your day every single day to focus solely on your studying with absolutely no distractions. And don't worry, you don't have to go crazy at first and start studying for multiple hours every single day. Just setting aside 10, 20, 30 minutes every single day and then working up to longer periods of time is what will ultimately reinforce these habits. And the reason I want you to get into this mentality for studying is because I want you to get rid of the fear that's associated with doing that kind of review. When you only end up studying before an exam, the stress and anxiety can really start to kick in, and then it just becomes that much more difficult to even start studying in the first place. So when you make it a habit of studying every single day, it makes it so that it almost becomes second nature, like you're brushing your teeth. And in this way, you are constantly reviewing the material and spacing it out so that you are keeping the information fresh in your mind. And when the test does ultimately come around, you have the mentality and the discipline to study and give it your all and not sit around like a sad, scared baby. Now, the second piece of brutal study advice is realizing that more time studying does not equal better test results. Now, for some weird reason, so many people pride themselves on their ability to study for multiple hours at a time. And I guess if you're one of those weird people that enjoy studying for that long, then more power to you. But for the majority of us, we obviously want to get the best results in the shortest amount of time. So what I want you to do is to make a full list of all the things and topics that will be tested on the exam, whether that be from a study guide or from the textbook. Then I want you to take that list of topics and then cross out each of the items that you already know pretty well, because those are the topics that you won't need to study nearly as much. Now that you have this list of topics that you feel the least comfortable with, I want you to set a very specific amount of time that you will spend studying those topics, maybe even a little bit less than you actually think you need. Then do as much studying and review as you can within that allotted period of time. When you give yourself this time constraint, it really forces you to focus on the task at hand, since you only have a very limited amount of time to complete your study and your review. So as opposed to giving yourself the entire day to study, which we all know you'll just end up procrastinating, you are forced to study on the topics that you know will actually be beneficial to you. But at this point, you might be thinking, okay, well, I know the things that I need to study, but how actually do I study? And this is where the third piece of brutal study advice comes in: memorize the test, not the textbook. Now, contrary to popular belief, highlighting all the passages in the textbook and then just regurgitating that onto your notes is probably one of the worst ways to study. Because the test will be going over some very specific things, it's more beneficial to you if you learn how to study the test and not necessarily the textbook. What I want you to do is to take out the key concepts within the textbook and then actually use that information and create Quizlet flashcards with it so that you can actively review it later. By using this method, rather than just copying and pasting the textbook onto your notes, you're actually asking yourself, okay, well, what kind of questions would my teacher ask? How would they frame the question? And then putting that knowledge into flashcards will be so much more useful than just regurgitating what you already know from the textbook. Another really great hack that can save you a lot of time is by taking all the key concepts that you're going to be tested on and then putting it into a service like ChatGPT, which will help to create the exam questions for you so you can get a better sense of how the actual exam might end up looking like. Now, while these tactics are extremely helpful, by far the most useful technique is by looking up past exam or quiz questions from other people who who have already taken the course. And by doing things like practice problems on these exams and tests, you take away some of the mystery about the kinds of questions your teacher will end up asking on the exam.
I think we should split up. What are we looking for? Clues!
Now, before we get into the fourth tip, if you're enjoying this video, I would highly appreciate it if you subscribe. Now, for the fourth study tip, if you really want to enforce these habits, then getting yourself a study buddy is a great idea. Now, for most people, your study buddy will end up being your friends or your classmates, and the reason I want you to have a study buddy is for two main reasons. The first reason is to keep you accountable, because if you make a pledge to yourself to study and you don't end up doing it, then it doesn't really matter that much. But when you tell your buddy that you're going to finish completing your notes and then study with each other at a very specific time, then there's that social factor where you don't want to be embarrassed and let your friend down. So having a study buddy to keep you on track is really helpful when you're having difficulty finding the motivation to really start reviewing and studying for your exam. Now, the second reason is to have someone that you can explain the concepts to. Being able to explain the concepts to someone in very simple terms is what will ultimately reinforce this information in your mind. And the best part is, you don't even need friends to reap the benefits. Sorry. Simply just talking to something like a stuffed animal will really help to solidify the information in your mind and will really let you know that if you can explain it in simple terms, then you are already on your way to mastering the information. So in the end, getting yourself a study buddy is a win-win for everyone. Now, for the last piece of study advice, it's important to note that studying is rough, so make it fun. Now, I definitely do not mean you have to make the entire studying process super entertaining, because it won't be. But what I am saying is that there are ways to make the study process in and of itself way more enjoyable. One of the easiest way to do this is by playing some kind of fun music in the background that will really hype you up for your study session. I would highly recommend listening to something like lo-fi beats, because I thought they were super overrated before, and then I actually started using it in my study sessions, and I found it was really helpful for helping me focus and get in the zone. So if you get the chance, you should definitely check that out, or use whatever music helps you focus. Then I want you to set up some kind of reward for yourself at the end of your study session. Maybe you say something like, okay, if I study consistently for 30 minutes with no distractions, then I'll let myself watch some YouTube videos or play some video games. By framing it this way, these things that were once distractions now act as rewards to fuel your focus. And honestly, after a session of deep focused studying, you deserve a little bit of rest and relaxation. Now, these were the brutal study tips that really helped me in school, and I know that if you take the time to implement these tips, then acing your tests and exams will become so easy for you. If you found this video helpful, hitting that subscribe button and liking the video would really help the channel out. And let me know if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover in the comments down below. But that's it for now, so go out and get those A's, and I will see you in the next one.